Hey there, Danavan Hylton, CEO of Hylton Elite Marketing Agency, your full-service sales and marketing firm dedicated to transforming developing communities into sustainable communities. We do these things through development, retention, and community relations services in a grassroots marketing way. To be exact, we provide new client development services, soft skill training, motivational speaking, as well as advising. And we do this through consulting and outsourcing. We specialize in, and with all that said, we pretty much manage relationships between the public and private sector. And so we traditionally work with business owners, employers, workforce development organizations, business chambers, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and elected officials. And not only do we help these sectors and these customer base of ours connect to the community and community leaders, but we also help our customer base connect with one another. And we do this particularly in diverse markets, particularly the African American or African diaspora and the Hispanic community for now. And we are pretty much doing a great job of helping to bridge those gaps, be it through employment, be it through government relations, community relations, soft skill training to retain employees, also with new client development to recruit new clients as well as recruit new employees. So we're constantly in the mix, constantly in the middle, managing these relationships, again, particularly in diverse markets, diverse communities. And so in doing that, especially with community relations, we do a lot of indirect government relations work. And wanted just to share a quick story with you. Something hit me, and what hit me was, Donovan, as you are, and for those that don't know my story, I moved to a whole new state, a whole new city without a college degree. Came to this area homeless with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and we are co-managing this business of ours. We've been managing this business for 3 years, for 3 years. And pretty much this started with myself, and my wife already knew it. She was my girlfriend at the time, but helping me to find the value of myself in regards to the skills, what am I good at, what people need, and what are people willing to pay me for, and was really great at managing relationships in a grassroots way. And I've been able to carve out a business, again, through new client development, through soft skill training, and overall community engagement services, which could be anything from, community engagement could be anything from facilitating meetings, hosting, marketing events at a client's building to bring people into their office, could be to just represent my client and go out into the community and participate in different activities, events, serving as a vendor at different trade shows and similar things, just to make sure that the community residents knew, because that's where that business is in that community, the community residents knew that that business is engaged in that community and not just in that community to extract the dollar. And so, again, in my work, I've grown to now work with government agencies, elected officials who want to do a better job of connecting with the community. But as I do these things, and I start to build my brand, and my bottom line starts to increase, I'm recognizing that the skills that I'm using are the skills that I'm receiving, and the type of game that I'm learning, that a lot of the community residents are still not there yet. And I wanted to share some information with community residents to put themselves in a better position to not only survive, but thrive. And so this particular lesson simply comes from a dream that I had not too long ago. Had a dream, and the bottom line was, in this dream, I was heading to a particular destination, and I decided not to take the usual route, and I went a different route. But in this route, I ended up walking through a rough crowd, and within this rough crowd, we were baited into a trap. And because I was within this rough crowd and we were baited into this trap, I became associated with this crowd, even though this crowd had nothing to do with me. And so therefore I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so when I woke up, I took that message as this message. I felt this trap was for me. But, I'm always into interpreting my dreams. And I looked up what a trap was, T as in Tom, R-A-P, what a trap was within my dream. And it said when I looked it up was that if you're caught in a trap, you are or you will be outwitted by your opponent. So if you're caught in a trap in your dream, you have been outwitted by your opponent. And before I go even deeper, I want to say if you're coming from a biblical context, I'm going to use the term God. God used dreams and visions several times in the Bible to communicate to people. And so I've always been one to, when I receive these visions and these dreams, to look it up, see what they mean, what are the deeper meanings as I go through my life. Because and from a spiritual context, I've always felt that my life has a purpose. And my purpose is not of my own gain, but to make sure that I'm helping people around me before I leave this reality. And so if you've had dreams and you wonder what they meant, look them up. And if you are at that point in your life, that's because you need to understand that your life is more than just you. It's for a deeper purpose. And if you have that mentality, at least you're going to walk in life in a more positive perspective, or more productive perspective, or more service perspective. That's probably the word, service perspective, because you're looking to give. And so, at any rate, so I had this dream, woke up, and the dream basically for me was like, dang, I just walked into a trap. And I took that dream for me personally. But when I looked at the deeper meaning of the dream, I realized the dream was probably for me, but it also was some insight for who I represent and who I do business with, or not with, but do business around. And so what I mean by that was, as I'm growing my business and I'm getting deeper into human development, into economic development, into social economic development, I'm realizing that there's certain communities that are still, maybe bad choice of words, being left behind, or are not getting what they're looking for. And I'm giving you that information based upon the results that they're receiving or the actions that they're delivering out or outputting. And so therefore I felt like maybe I'm working hard, but maybe the people that are in the community working with that are disgruntled, maybe they're the ones being trapped. And I looked up trap in the dream interpretation. And again, if you're caught in a trap, you are being outwitted by your opponent. And so I thought that was very interesting. And so I looked up, again, this dream and just throw it out there. Again, God uses dreams and visions several times in the Bible to communicate to people. We'll use, and again, there's certain, you got the Quran and you have, the Torah, and you have the Kabbalah and all these you have several books, but I believe I'm gonna use the biblical context here because it's pretty dominant in America. I'm sure everyone had a chance to open up a Bible. Not saying if you didn't, no disrespect, no love lost. But so, for example, with Abraham in Genesis 15:1, God used the vision to restate the Abrahamic covenant, reminding Abram that he would have a son and be the father of many nations. Joseph in Genesis 37:1-11, Joseph was one of the most famous dreamers, and one of the most famous dream interpreters. And his first recorded dreams were found in Genesis chapter 37, and it showed that Joseph was able to decipher symbols that Joseph's family would one day bow to him in respect. His brothers didn't appreciate the dream, and in their hatred, they sold Joseph into slavery. And Joseph eventually ended up in prison in Egypt. Samuel, who's in the Bible, 1 Samuel 3, Samuel had his first vision as a young boy, and God told him that judgment was coming upon the son of Samuel's mentor, Eli. And the young Samuel was faithful to relay the information, and God continued to speak to Samuel through the rest of his life. And so, and I'll see if I can put some sources down where I get this information, as I had to do research again on this trap dream that I felt. And I'm just letting you know that, I decided to do a dream interpretation. And if you feel like that's something that should be, that's something ungodly, I just want to throw out there to you that God used dreams and visions several times in the Bible to communicate with people. And so I always try to make my best to stay spiritual. So at any rate, I had this dream, I was trapped. And again, the dream said that I was being outwitted by my opponent. When you have a dream that you're trapped. And I felt like this dream was not only for me, but for the people that I represent, the people that I come from. And so, So within this dream, when I was going down to a destination that I always gone to, but I decided to take a different route this time. I walked past a rough crowd, and the rough crowd got baited into something where they got caught up by some authority figures. And because I was associated at the time, because I was going through that route, in that crowd, they automatically assumed that I was a part of that crowd, even though I was like, no, I'm just coming through. I'm just walking through. Like, nah, get over here too. And as we were getting collected or wrangled up, whatever you call it, or we were getting wrangled up by everybody into this area to be checked, some of the people that I was wrangled up with or collected with were putting the evidence on me. Just, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know from Adam. I was just walking through, and I'm like, dang, I'm gonna try to tell them I had nothing to do with this. I was just coming through, and in that, they were putting stuff in my pockets and laughing at me, smiling, now saying, yeah, you know what I mean? And so then at that point, I'm like, okay, well, do I take it out? Do I complain? Do I put it on somebody else? And that was all part of my dream even more. And what I mean by that is, again, you're being trapped. That means you're being outwitted by your opponent. But even though you're being outwitted by your opponent, because I may be looking the part, or at times, even within my dream, it showed me that even the people that are being wrangled up with you, which is if you're being trapped by your opponent, sometimes even your teammates can make the game harder for you to reach your goal or destination. And what I mean by that was, again, it's one thing to be trapped by the authorities, but it's another thing to be caught up in a trap by the authorities, and now we're hemmed up, and they're trying to plant your own teammate that you got hemmed up with, or planting stuff on you. You know what I'm saying? To maybe lessen up their charge, which means that I'm really in it now. I'm like, oh, dang, and and it was a very scary feeling. And so again, let's look at the word outwitted. To be outwitted means to be deceived or defeated by greater ingenuity, to get the better of you by superior cleverness. And so therefore, when you're trapped, you're being out-deceived by your opponent. You're being defeated by greater ingenuity. You've been clevered. You've been superior clevered, if you will, bad choice of words, by your opponent. To be deceived is to believe something that is not true, typically in order to gain some personal advantage, which means to be hoodwinked. And so therefore, I was deceived because there was maybe some truth in it, but I was hoodwinked to be taken advantage of by personal gain. And ingenuity is the quality of being clever, to be original, and to be inventive. And so to bring it all the way back, my dream, which was to be trapped, I was baited, and then taken advantage of by my own teammates to make my job harder with the opponents. I was outwitted, not only by the authorities, but I was also outwitted by my own teammates who I thought were supposed to be my team, or they're going through the experience with me. And so, I believe as I got deeper into this conversation, the bottom line was, as I'm in socioeconomics, the socioeconomic game, and managing relations between the public and private sector, and I see that the traditional people always get the short end of the stick, and they come up with, different strategies or different feelings to try to get out of the situation, but they never seem to get out of the situation. And here I am coming to a new environment with nothing, and been able to build a brand over 10 years to get to the point where now I'm on this side, building my brand, bringing in this income, and my own people, that helped me get to where I am now see me as someone on the other side, where really we should be all on one side, moving forward and making it. And so really this conversation to me is about being a producer or a consumer, which pretty much what it boils down to. People are primarily consumers. And I want, in that, let's look at the purpose of a consumer. And so when I said, hey, first of all, people are possibly consumers, and that's why they're getting the short end of the stick. Then I looked at the purpose of a consumer, which drew me to consumer responsibility. And consumer responsibility, that means that we are not taking responsibility for the environmental cost and consequences of our consumption patterns and lifestyles. So when you're a consumer, you have to be responsible for your consumption. And with the definition of consumer responsibility, that means that the consumer is not taking responsibility for the environmental cost and the consequences of their consumption patterns and lifestyle. And so I looked up environmental cost, and I came across environmental full cost accounting. I'm gonna have these sources here: environmental full cost accounting. And what that what that means is environmental full cost accounting is a method of cost accounting that traces direct cost and allocates indirect costs by collecting and presenting information about the possible environmental, social, and economic costs and benefits or advantages. In short, about the triple bottom line. And when I say the triple bottom line is, since cost and advantages are usually considered in terms of environmental, economic, and social impacts, full or true cost efforts are collectively called the bottom line. So therefore, let's bring it back. I'm saying that if you're consumer minded, you're in trouble. And so the consumer responsibility or the responsibility of the consumer is not taking responsibility for the environmental cost and consequences of their consumption patterns and their lifestyle. And so therefore, they're not taking responsibility for their environment, for their economic, and their social impacts, which is the triple bottom line. And as I grow my bottom line, I want my community residents to grow their bottom line. But if they're not taking responsibility of their triple bottom line, which is their environment, their economics, and their social impact, they're already starting off on the wrong foot. So again, consumer, let's look at that again. The root word of consumer is consume. And economics, a consumer is a person or organization that uses a commodity or service. In ecology, consumer is an organism, usually an animal that feeds on plants and other animals. And the origin of consumer back in from 1375 to 1425, for earlier sense, meant squanderer. So the origin of consumer back in the 1400s meant squanderer. And that again, transitioned into the 1500s and Middle English into consume. So again, if you're a consumer in the capitalistic game, that means that in its roots back in the 1400s, you're a squanderer. And a squanderer is to spend or use, usually money or time, extravagantly or wastefully, often followed by away. A squanderer is to spend or use their money and time extravagantly or wastefully, to scatter. And so therefore, if you're squandering, you're scattering your time and your money extravagantly, wastefully. And what does the Bible say about squanderer? And again, I'm going to have these sources at the bottom. And I looked it up just real quick because this stuff was on my heart because I was feeling trapped. And so again, I was feeling trapped. Not only did I get trapped by the authorities because I was at the wrong place at the wrong time because I wanted to take a different route, but then the people that I was trapped with were making it harder on me to save themselves. And that basically, and this all happened because going through my week, I was recognizing in capital society, you're either a producer or you're a consumer. And when you're a consumer, you usually get the short end of the stick. And so breaking down the word consumption, not only are you responsible for your environment, your economics, and your social impact, but breaking the word down of consumer, which is to consume, means that you're squandering, spending and using your money and your time extravagantly or wastefully. So what does the Bible say in regards to consumer, a squanderer? Proverbs chapter 5, verses 9 through 14 says, Proverbs 5, chapter 5, 9 through 14 says, "You don't want to squander your wonderful life, to waste your precious life among the hard-hearted. Why should you allow strangers to take advantage of you? Why be exploited by those who care nothing for you? You don't want to end your life full of regrets, nothing but sin and bones, saying, 'Oh, why didn't I do what they told me? Why did I reject a disciplined life? Why didn't I listen to my mentors or take my teachers seriously? My life is ruined. I haven't one blessed thing to show for my life. Never take love for granted.'" And this was coming from, I don't know if this was like the New International Version and maybe different words. But in this case, that's what Proverbs 5, chapter 5, 9 through 14 said about a squanderer. And so A squander, again, is to spend or use your money or your time extravagantly or wastefully, to scatter it all around. And breaking down the word consume, since you're a consumer, let's break down the word consume. That is to destroy or expend by use. Keep that word expend in mind. We're going to get to that in a minute. To destroy or expend by use. To use up. A second definition is to eat or drink up or to devour. Third definition is to destroy as by decomposition or burning. And let's go back to the second definition of consume, to eat or drink up or to devour. The word devour really jumped out to me. And so I looked up, what does devour say about the Bible? What does the Bible say about devour? I'm sorry. What does the Bible say about devour? But before I got into devour, let's first look at the word, what the definition of devour. Devour is to swallow up or to eat up hungrily, voraciously, or ravenously, like a raven. The second definition of devour is to consume destructively, recklessly, or wantonly. Third definition is to engulf or swallow up. Your fourth definition of devour is to take in greedily with the senses or intellect, or to absorb or engross wholly, which is the fifth definition. I don't want to bore you with all these extra words, but I'm just trying to break this stuff down because, again, I was walking into a trap and I was being outwitted. Again, the definition of outwitted is to be deceived or defeated by a greater ingenuity. Ingenuity is the quality of being clever. Again, outwitted is to get the better of by superior cleverness. And so if we're not being clever as consumers, expect, according to what the Bible said in Proverbs 5:19, off the rip, it says, you don't want to squander your wonderful life away, to waste your precious life among the hard-hearted. We're not going to get back into it. Proverbs chapter 5, verses 9 through 14. And so now we're back down to devour, and we know what devour means, to swallow up or to eat hungrily or ravenously, to consume. There's that word, second definition, to consume, which is consumer, to consume destructively, recklessly, scattered all over the place. And so what does the Bible say about devoured? Well, Malachi chapter 3, verse 11 says, I will rebuke the devourer for you so that it will not destroy the fruits of your soil, and your vine in the field shall not fall to bear, says the Lord of hosts. I'll read that one more time. Malachi, the ESV version. You know that better than me. I will rebuke, Malachi chapter 3, verse 11. I will rebuke the devourer for you so that it will not destroy the fruits of your soil, and your vine in the field shall not fail to bear, says the Lord of hosts. Amos chapter 4, verse 9 in the ESV version says, I struck you with the blight and mildew, your many gardens and your vineyards, your fig trees and your olive trees, the locusts devoured. Yet you did not return to me, declares the Lord. Again, devour means to swallow up, to consume destructively. So to consume, obviously, breaking that word back down, consume, breaking that word down, means to destroy or expend by use, to eat up, again, to devour, to destroy as by decomposition or burning. So we now know what a consumer is. It's basically wasting opportunities, wasting resources, not focusing on your triple bottom line. You're wasting your opportunity, not you personally. I could be me. I am wasting away my bottom line for my environment. Am I just throwing trash on the floor? Am I not helping the young men and women be the best they can be as they're walking back and forth to the school bus or whatever that is? Am I not trying my best to be a sound child within my parents' household, or to be a sound husband or father or boyfriend or girlfriend within the household? A sound father or mother to my children to show them the way as they get out into the world. That's environmental. Am I wasting away or scattering my time and my money and my energy when it comes to my economics? Am I not saving my money? Am I going here and there spending and not producing assets, purchasing assets. So you have your environment and your social. You have your social. So you have your environment, you have your economics, which is your triple bottom line, and you have your social impact. What am I doing in my community? Am I serving? Am I giving some time away in between my job, between my hours? Am I just helping to be a good Samaritan? These are simple things that we can do to turn not only ourselves around individually, but also our environment around, and also eventually our financial situation around, to not be a consumer. We all consume, but you don't have to be a consumer. There's a difference between that, if that makes sense. So I believe in Galatians 5, matter of fact, going back to devour, Galatians chapter 5, verses 15 in the New International Version says, if you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. Simple as that. So usually, I'm not saying that because you're a consumer and you're getting the short end of the stick that you're doing each other wrong. What I'm saying is you need to better position yourselves to be the opposite of consumer, because right now a consumer could be seen as a more challenging connotation. Galatians chapter 5 verses 15 says in the New International Version, if you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. So we don't want to be a consumer. I don't want to be a consumer in the capitalistic game. So what do you want to be? What is it that, the people that are getting things done that you may not really like, what attitude are they giving out? Producer. Opposite of a consumer is a producer. So we may want to become a producer and become producer-minded. And the root word of producer is to produce. A producer is someone who produces. In economics, a producer is a person who creates economic value or produces goods and services. A person that is responsible for the financial and administrative aspect of a stage, a film, a television, or a radio production. The person who exercises general supervision of a production and is responsible chiefly for raising money, hiring technicians and artists, etc., required by a stage play, make a motion picture, or the like. Now, I believe Andre 3000 said it best in Idlewild. Life is a stage. We're acting, if you will. When you look at the root word of a person, it's an actor. It's a character. And sometimes I feel like, not getting too deep, life is no different than Sims. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're acting. We're all playing a role here. And so bringing it back into, you're a person responsible for the financial and the administrative aspect of a stage, of a film, of a television, of a radio production. That's no different than the story of life. In ecology, a producer is an organism, as a plant, that is able to produce its own food from an inorganic substance. And inorganic means not consisting of or deriving from a living matter. So they're able to produce something that may not be living, but again, that's what products are anyways, services are anyways. The root word of produce, the root word of produce is to offer, to view, or notice. To produce is to offer, to view, or to notice, to give birth or rise to yield, to extend in length, area, or value, to extend in length, area, or volume, to make available for public exhibition or dissemination, to provide funding for, search for backers, to provide funding for or search for backers, to oversee the making of, to cause to have existence or to happen, to give being, to form, to shape, to compose, to create, to bring out by intellectual or physical effort, to cause or to accrue, to bear, to make. Again, the sixth definition was to create. Create used to be, back in the day, in ancient antiquity, was a very divine word. Because when you're creating something, you're literally making something manifest traditionally out of nothing, or from its zero or first stage. And that's a very sacred thing, because that's very closely related to nature, to God, to the universe. To make something out of nothing, to create. And when you're producing, you're creating something. Traditionally, 9 times out of 10, what you're creating is coming from the conception, coming from the mind, coming from the input, which becomes the process, then becomes the output, which is the results. So that's those are the definitions of produce. To accrue is to happen or result as a natural growth. In law, to accrue is to become a present and enforceable right or demand, and that's what you want to become. You want to become a present and an enforceable right or demand when it comes to what you're trying to get done. So what does the Bible say about produce? And I looked it up. I couldn't really find too much, but I kept seeing the words to bear or producing fruit. And so I ran with that. And this is from the ESV version of the Bible. Colossians chapter 1, verses 10 says, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. Again, we're using the word produce and substituting produce, the word produce, for bear or bearing or producing fruit. So as to walk in a manner, Colossians chapter 1, verse 10, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, producing, also known as bearing fruit, producing in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. Psalms chapter 1, verses 1 through 6 in the ESV version says, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seats of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruits in its season, and its leaves do not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. Again, there was that word. He's like planting the streams of water that yields its fruits, that yields. And if we look at that word yield, that went back to produce, which was definition 2, to give birth or rise to yield. So therefore, we're jumping right back into that word produce. And it said here, he is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields, that produces its fruit in its season, and its leaves do not wither. We're talking production, producing minded people. We're not talking about being scattered. Matthew chapter 3, verses 8 in the ESV version says, bear fruit in keeping with repentance. Produce in keeping with repentance. I'm going to challenge you to look up the word repentance. Matthew chapter 7, verses 17 through 20 in the ESV version says, so every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, you will recognize them by their fruits. Now, I'm not saying that because you're a consumer or that you may be getting the short end of the stick as a consumer-minded individual that you should be burned by the fire or that you're unhealthy. But what I'm saying is based upon focusing on those 3 bottom lines. And if you don't know what the terminology of bottom line is, your bottom line is the money that you take home after your expenses. So you get your profit, but in your profit, you are paying your expenses, which I believe is your gross sales. But then, or your gross income. But after you pay your expenses, your net income is what you receive after you pay your expenses, which is your bottom line. And we already made it sure. And the consumer responsibility, there's a triple bottom line. You got your environment, you got your economics, and you got your social impact. So so you're talking business right there. You're consumer, you're still talking business. But not just one bottom line in a traditional business sense, but a triple bottom line. And it says right here, if you are Matthew chapter 7, 17 verses 20, that so every healthy tree bears good fruit. John chapter 15 verses 2 in the ESV version says, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. So if you're not producing, you're already putting yourself in a challenging situation. I'm going to cut it off in a minute, but Luke 13 verses 9 in the ESV version says, then if you should bear fruit next year, well and good. But if not, you can cut it down. And so this is why possibly in your lower developed communities, your higher developed communities with the resources that are producer minded sees value in what one is not producing. And so they take it and raise the value by becoming production minded to ultimately get more consumers in there. But the consumers that are traditionally in there are producing. So they don't mind consuming because they're already producing at the same time. So you want to find that balance of production, of consumption, but also production. If you're predominantly leaning on consumption and you don't have enough production or enough producing, you're going to have a challenging situation. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to get less of an ear. And this is what I'm trying to just throw out to the community residents from a corporate social responsibility standpoint, as ultimately it's about the dollar in a capitalistic society. You know, you have to be, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but in this type of game, capitalism, you have to be producer minded, which first starts with getting your skills down and your experience down to build up your skills and to build up your value so that you can get your earn your income. And then you start reinvesting your hard-earned dollars to make your hard-earned dollars work for you, which becomes your passive and your portfolio income. You start producing and purchasing assets, things that are making money for you without having to work. So that way you have multiple streams of income coming in. That's how you do it. And when you have that income coming in, the money talks and you're able to get some things going faster. If not, it's going to be challenging. I'm not saying it can't get done, but you have to find alternative routes to make that happen. And sometimes it's not going to be pretty. And so at any rate, so ultimately, you know, it's funny because as I was wrapping up my research on this, I was on YouTube for something, about to put some music on. Billy Jean, I believe his name is, the gentleman who does the advertising, African-American gentleman who has the advertising agency. He popped up and he's, you know, showing his office and showing people around the office and all that. He made a very interesting state. I literally was finished my research, about to put some music on to put it all together. And his advertisement came on as soon as I put it on YouTube. And he made a very interesting statement that I want to bring to your attention. He said, you want time, you want the wealth, and you want the freedom, but you're not willing to build. I'll repeat that one more time. Billy Jean, in his ad that popped up when I was putting on some gospel music, I think, on YouTube, I thought I just finished doing this research that I'm talking to you about because I had a dream about being trapped for the people that I worked so hard to uplift. And there's no particular person, I just have a heart for transforming, developing communities because I want everyone to have the best quality of life possible. And in that, we have to change and reverse and transform the triple bottom line, which is in the consumer responsibility game, which ends up being your environment, your economics, and your social impact. And in that, as I was finishing my research, about to put some music on to go ahead and put all this together, Billy Jean ad popped up and he said, you want more time, you want wealth, and you want freedom, but you're not willing to build. And I thought that was very interesting. So I had to go back into my research and about building. You're not willing to build. And what does the Bible say about building? Luke chapter 14, verses 28 in the ESV version said, for which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? And again, this is what we're talking about being consumption minded. I brought it all the way back to being consumption minded, meaning, we may want, to become producers, but are we doing our due diligence to make it happen? Or are we trying to hustle and bustle? Or maybe we just don't know the proper steps. Again, it took me 10 years at the minimum and great mentors to help me get to where I am. And it's still a rocky road for me as I'm building. I'm still getting lumps and learning hard lessons. But the many business owners that I'm working with that are sitting back, going across the world, traveling and doing these things, they say, Donovan, you're doing a great job. Because right now what you're doing, I'll never forget, one mentor of mine who's bringing in a couple $1 million a month in sales said, Donovan, right now you're earning your stripes. Donovan, right now you're earning your stripes because what you're going through is no different than what I went through for years. And I said, wow, I appreciate that because I see you sitting back, you barely at the office, you got a great team working, doing the job. He said, Donovan, it didn't come easy. It was times I had to go out and get odd jobs, times I had to go out and refinance and do this and that to try to make it happen. And you're earning your stripes. So for Luke chapter 14, verses 28, for which of you desiring to build a tower does not sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it. And with that being said, I looked up what is the biggest reason why a business fails. And successharbor.com came up. And the 50 reasons why some businesses fail while others succeed, number 1 was a lack of planning. And again, we just read that in Luke chapter 14, verse 28. Successharbor.com, out of their 50 reasons why businesses fail while others succeed, number 1 was a lack of planning. So if you're consumer minded and you want to become producer minded, you have to plan. Businesses fail because of lack of short-term and long-term planning. Your plan should include where your business will be in the next 5 years. Your plan should include where your business will be in the next few months to the next few years. Include measurable goals and results. The right plan will include specific to-do lists with dates and deadlines. Failure to plan will damage your business. And a business is designed to gain a profit. Simple as that. Some other fun facts. Number 2 reason was a failure was leadership failure. Businesses fail because of poor leadership. And a true leader is going to plan, first of all. Some of your best leaders are planners. You live by grace, but in that grace, when you become more knowledgeable and responsible, you become more accountable in life. And therefore, you have to not put grace to the test, but start planning, start thinking, start being diligent in your due. And the leadership must be able to make the right decisions most of the time. From financial management to employee management, leadership failures will trickle down to every aspect of your business, every aspect of your personal life, every aspect of your family. Same thing, no different. Most successful entrepreneurs, most successful husbands, most successful fathers, most successful wives, most successful mothers, most successful boyfriends and girlfriends learn, study, and reach out to mentors to improve their leadership skills. And I recommend that you do that. Third reason why most businesses fail is because they don't know what makes them different than the other products. They don't know what makes them great individually. Therefore, you have to know thyself first, because your business is a reflection of who you are. First of all, unless you're just investing in a business. But if you're coming off the ground and you want to do something that's passionate of yours, you got to first know what your skills are. Again, what people are willing to, what people need, what you're good at, what you like to do, what people are willing to pay you for, and if you don't know those things, you're ignoring the customer's needs, which is number 4. Number 4 reason why businesses fail. And then the number 5 reason, I'm going to leave it there, is the leader's inability to learn from failure. And so again, I'm bringing up this whole conversation because I'm doing me. I'm living good in that regard. But my heart goes out to the people. And I had a dream about me being trapped and having by my opponents and my teammates making it harder on me. But found out, Danavan, this is more of a societal thing. And more of a societal thing because most people are consumer minded. We may have the big lifestyle, luxury, glamorous things, but in America, I think they said like a recent poll came out, and like over 70%, if not 80% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their savings if something was to go down. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, number 5 is the inability to learn from your failures. We all know that failure is usually bad, yet it's rare that businesses learn from failure. Realistically, businesses that fail for multiple reasons. Often entrepreneurs are oblivious about their mistakes. Learning from failure is difficult. So you may have lost a great relationship. What did you learn from that? How can you become better? You may have lost a great friend. What did you learn from that? How do you become better? You may have lost your home. What did you learn from that? How can you become better? Because your failures are designed to make you better anyways. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 9 through 15 of the ESV version says, "For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. According to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid." Matthew 7, chapter 7, verses 24 through 27 says, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. So in order to build something, you first have to plan. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish. Fool means unwise. So be like a unwise man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. These are just things that I want to get out to you, and I hope all this rambling for a little under an hour makes sense. But there is a reason why there are consumers, and there's a reason why there are producers. And there's certain principles, which are the foundation of truth. There's certain laws, there's certain rules that go into the position that we're in. And I'm not saying that if you're a producer is always going to be good. I'm not saying if you're a consumer is always going to be bad. Because we have this thing called grace. If our heart is integral, we walk with the best character that we can for ourselves and those around us, we're going to get that grace. But in grace, you don't want to put it to the test, which means that you have to constantly learn, constantly grow to become a leader, constantly plan as best you can. Because even sometimes within your planning, it's not going to go as planned. And you got to be able to just roll with it. But that's grace. But there's some things that you're going to be accountable for. And those things that you're being accountable for, bringing it back to environmental full cost accounting, being accountable, environmental full cost, which is in short about the triple bottom line, which consists of your environmental, your economic, and your social impact. I have to ensure that just as much as I want to consume, I have to be producing at least twice, if not 4 times as much. Wise mentor once told me, Don, at the end of the day, 4 times ROI, 4 times return on your investment. So if you're going to put $1 in, make sure you're getting $4 back. If you're going to pay somebody for a service and it costs $1, make sure that service is bringing you back $4. If that makes sense. So if I'm consuming, I want my consumption to be okay, but I know that what I'm consuming, I have 4 times that coming in. Easier said than done, but at least with that mentality, starting with the conception, starting with the input, you're going to be able to believe. You're going to be able to start working on it, and you're going to be able to start processing it, which is the action behind the faith, and you're going to get that manifestation, the results that you're looking for, the concept, the achievement, the output, the results, the reaction to your initial action. And so if this information was worthy to you, and you don't like what's going on in your community, you don't like what's going on in your life, focus on becoming a producer. Focus and not talking through, debt is cool, but, if you know how to use your debt, that's great, but increase your productivity, both financially, both community service-wise, productivity, start increasing it, and watch your attitude and your mind become production-minded. Watch your attitude and your mind start to look on how to plan, how to become a better leader, how to learn from your challenges and your failures, and the many other things, the top 5 that I talked about earlier. Keep those things in mind. And I can almost promise you, by becoming more producing minded, you're going to receive the results that you want to see not only for yourself, but for the environment around you. Danavan Hylton, CEO of Hylton Lead Marketing Agency, your business advisor, specializing in managing relationships within diverse communities between businesses, government agencies, as well as the community, urging and focusing on win-win deals, urging you to become producer-minded. We're glad that there's consumers out there, and we're a consumer, I'm a consumer, but in my consumption, I'm producing 4 times more than what I'm consuming. If you feel this information was valuable to you, I thank you for visiting our Cash app, www.cash.me/$E1Connect, E, the letter E, the number 1, CONNECT. Cash.me/$, letter E, number 1, connect. Cash.me /$ E1 Connect. I have a link at the bottom, and I thank you for your donations as I'm a self-sustaining business. And as I'm building my business first through earned income by getting the job done myself and growing my business to become passive income focused and portfolio income focused, the Cash App is one way for me to help pay for my day-to-day expenses and to take care of my liabilities, to help me increase my revenue as well as my assets a lot faster. So I thank you if this message was of any value to you, of donating whatever you felt this message was worth. Danavan Hylton just saying that I love you on behalf of my firm. I love you on behalf of the world, and I don't want to see you or your community get the short end of the stick. And the way you do that is by producing and becoming more productive in your bottom line, in your triple bottom line, in your environment, in your economic, and your social impact. Do it for yourself. Do it for your community. And I can almost guarantee you it's going to be a whole different ballgame. Danavan Hylton, CEO of Hylton Lee Marketing Agency, reminding you, we're more than just marketing.